statistics, we shall have a deeper understanding of what MPI is, tracking the progress, the various dimensions which we shall be revealing today, the indicators, and so many issues. Just to remind you that this report has been generated from the National Population and Housing Census Report that was published on the 31st of December 2024. But before I go further, I wish to take recognition of all the invited guests who are here present. I want to take recognition of the members of the Bureau, Makerere University Business School, National Planning Authority, United Nations Development Program, Economic Policy Research Center. I'm seeing Doctor is here. Doctor, you're welcome. Petroleum Authority of Uganda, Equal Opportunities Commission, Parliament of Uganda, World Bank, PCF, Kampala International University, East African Community, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. I saw Florence, she's here from the United Nations Population Fund for Africa, UNFPA. Thank you for coming. So ladies and gentlemen, feel free. You can ask your neighbor if at all they slept well. It is good. So once again, I want to also welcome the members of the media who are our very, very good partners in extending and furthering the content of each and everything that we do. Beyond the explanation by the technical experts, the media plays a very important role in ensuring that this data is more simplified and perhaps presented in a more understandable manner and consumable by the general public. So the media want to thank you for coming, and we thank you so much for the good job you have done always. I don't know if I've not read your institution. I just want to assure you that you are most welcome, and we are all here in equal capacity to receive the findings from the Multidimensional Poverty Index report generated from the census report that was conducted in 2024. So you're all most welcome. In your various capacities, you are most welcome. So feel at home, take the most comfortable seat, and then you shall be able to follow the proceeding. Join me, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome one of our board members who's here with us, Madam Irene Birungi. You are most welcome to the dissemination of Multidimensional Poverty Index. I know as we go along, we shall be picking a lot more in depth, especially after the presentation of these findings. We shall be able to inform what we have done before and what we can do better. So thank you. Simon, you're most welcome. From the United Nations Residence Coordinator's Office, you're most welcome. Karibu. You're all most welcome. But just in case I read the institution, because I know some members were out for the breakfast, let me take this opportunity to once again recognize all the participants from the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. And I will stop there. and quickly join me to welcome our Executive Director, Dr. Chris Mukiza. Dr. Chris Mukiza is the Chief Statistician of Uganda, and I'm seeing him with the members of Parliament, Honorable Geoffrey Ekanya, who comes from my district of Tororo. I also take recognition of him. So let's clap for him. I have just slightly, I know her very well, Doctor, and I'm trying to remember the name quickly, but let me get a whisper. It is also in order to get a whisper from the Honorable Member of Parliament. Honorable Nakut Faith is a Member of Parliament. Let's give a very big hand clap. So this delegation,
these two people are representing the Parliamentary Committee of Finance, Plan Economic Development, and they are very big people in their own capacity. This one is Treasurer General, National Resistance Movement, Parliamentary Caucus. Geoffrey is the Treasurer General for FDC, NRM Caucus. So they chose them to ensure that they harmonize, and whatever comes from here, they go and improve and inculcate them. They put them in their programs, because at the end of the day, we want the development of this country, nothing else. Especially us statisticians. So you can see we are bringing the various political parties together to embrace the programs that will benefit the country. So they are here intentionally, not, and I guess other MPs will join them later. But have been our strong partners and advocates of statistics. Geoffrey is a very good ambassador. Yesterday he made a very strong statement. And I didn't hear NNI, everybody adopted it, said every government MDA's budget should be subjected to the compliance certificate from UBOS to show that they are using data in their programs. Isn't it a very strong statement? People just pick their own data. They make a budget with a lot of money, allocate. At the end of the day, the issues we are going to see in this report manifest. So his idea, I think, is a very noble one and a groundbreaking. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very big hand clap for ED's detailed pronouncement and introduction of the members of Parliament. I'm not hearing the clap. That is now much better. And you know that ED's comment reminds me of a Latin phrase. At a time when I tried to be in a seminary, and there was a lecture or teaching on Latin subject. Fortunately, I scored a distinction, but that can be approved by HR because it is in the file. But it is a message of hope from Honorable Geoffrey Ekanya, from the constituency of, is it? Yeah, I wanted you to guess so that you can laugh a bit, because you were not clapping. But you see, I was telling you of the Latin phrase. There's a Latin phrase which I learned. Dum spiro spero. Director Internal Audit, your next seminarian, could you please translate for the audience? Mr. You're welcome, sir. I wanted to recognize you. That's why I had to take on you, sir. But it means, while I breathe, I hope. And it is a very popular motto for the state of California. While I breathe, I hope. Doom, spiro, spero. So the message of Honorable Godfrey Kanya yesterday at Parliament re-emphasizes the aspect of hope in statistical production and development in Uganda, but also emphasizes the use of data in the whole planning process of the country. So once again, honorable members of Parliament, you're most welcome, and we thank you for joining us today for this dissemination of the Multidimensional Poverty Index report, which I know is going to even give you much more detailed information, and you leave here perhaps richer in information, but also richer in how the Bureau tracks all this progress of Uganda. So once again, I take recognition of the representatives from these institutions: Makerere University, National Planning Authority, MOBS, United Nations Development Program, Economic Policy Research Center, World Bank, Equal Opportunities Commission, Parliament of Uganda. Apart from the MPs, we also have staff of Parliament who are here present. Uganda Bureau of Statistics, of course. We have a number of our directors here. Recognition to our secretary of the board, and also the legal director of Uganda Bureau of Statistics, Madam Pamela Kansime. Karibu, director. Please, let them see you. It is very important. Anything to do with the board, Madam Pamela is responsible. Director IT is here present with us. James Kiza is there. Our Director Internal Audit is present. Edbert Oyesiga. All heads of department. Director Corporate Services, the entire corporate of the institution, David Ocheng. Please let them see you, sir. And we have, of course, a number of heads of departments and other members of staff of Uganda Bureau of Statistics. And again, I want to say karibu to our good friends, the members of the media fraternity. You play a very pivotal role in dissemination of statistical information. Perhaps that's why Honorable Godfrey Kanya is so informed. In addition to reading the reports, I believe he also reads the news from other platforms. So thank you so much. Once again, I welcome the ED together with our board member, Madam Irene Birungi. You are welcome to this very important session as the Bureau disseminates the chairperson of the board. I apologize, Doctor. So, chairperson of the board of Uganda Bureau of Statistics, here present, Madam Irene Birungi. You are most welcome. Let's clap for her. Thank you so much. So can we then clap for ourselves for keeping time and coming very early? Can you imagine? I'm surprised that people don't want to appreciate themselves. What's the problem? Thank you so much. So again, I also want to thank the team, and I know ED will do that emphasis, who have processed this report through the period and made it ready for today's dissemination. You are all most welcome. I will only be guided when we can have the national anthem, the East African anthem, and the prayer. And now the leader said that we can start. So could we please rise up for the anthems? The technicians can help us. We start with our national anthem. East African Nation. Thank you so much. Let's remain standing for a word of prayer.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together today as we reflect on the multidimensional poverty report. We are grateful for the knowledge, data, and insights that guide our understanding of the realities facing our people. Lord, grant us wisdom to interpret this information with clarity, compassion to see beyond the numbers, and commitment to use these findings to improve lives across our nation. May our work at UBOS continue to guide planning, inform policy, and evidence-based decision-making. We thank you and we honor you. In God's name I've prayed. Amen.
Thank you very much, Nancy. And we want to thank God for the sanctification of this exercise, this powerful dissemination of the Multidimensional Poverty Index report, generated professionally from the National Population Housing Census Report 2024. ED and chairperson of the Board of Uganda Bureau of Statistics, while you are not here, I gave these people and the distinguished guests who are here present, based on what you said about Honorable Geoffrey Ekanya, the spirit of hope. And I told them that is a popular motto for the state of California, and is written in Latin language. And I told them that the motto says, Dum Spiro Spero. And it simply means that while I breathe, I hope. So there is a lot of hope, and I know we shall leave this room with great hope, especially after listening to these very important findings for the day. So ladies and gentlemen, in a very few minutes from now, we shall be joined by our guest of honor, who is also the Minister for State for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Government of Uganda. And then we shall have in our program, the ED will welcome us. The chairperson of the board will open this session. We shall have a remarks from representative United Nations Development Program, World Bank. We shall have the presentation by the experts of statistics on the findings. We shall also have a plenary where we can hear from you and have more insights and discussions onto the findings. After that, we shall have remarks from our chief guest. I invite you to stand up to welcome our chief guest, Honorable Amos Lugolobi, the Minister for State Planning and Economic Development, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Government of Uganda. Our chief guest, we thank you for coming and for joining us this morning as we disseminate the Multidimensional Poverty Index report. Just to alert you and brief you kindly that you found when we just had the anthems and also prayer. So we have faithfully dedicated this day to God, and we pray that your presence will actually amplify this event. So we thank you for coming. Let us give a very big hand clap to our chief guest. In the interest of time, allow me humbly to invite our Executive Director and the Chief Statistician of Uganda, Dr. Chris Mukiza, to welcome us all to this very important session. Doctor, you're welcome. Can we give him a very big hand clap as he comes to welcome us? Thank you.
Our dear guest of honor, the Honorable Amos Rugorovi, who the ministry popularly calls Professor in the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Government, the representative from World Bank, all representatives from our development partners, particularly UN system, I can see you here. The acting chairperson, Uganda Bureau of Statistics Board, and board members present here. The representative of the chairperson, Parliamentary Committee on Finance, Planning and Development. We recognize you. All the stakeholders here assembled, management and staff of Uganda Bureau of Statistics, media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. I wish to welcome you to this occasion as we disseminate the Multidimensional Poverty Index, which is coming from the data of the National Population and Housing Census 2024. And this report is the 5th volume. We have already disseminated the main report, that was in December, from which we published the population projection report of 2025 to 2050, the sub-regional profiles, which give data up to the parish level, the disability monograph, as volume 3, the orphans and other vulnerable children, OVC, volume 4, this was last week. And today we shall be publishing volume 5 of Multidimensional Poverty Index. All of these have been achieved by deeply analyzing the census data on specific themes. Between 2005 and 2008, I dedicated my effort investigating growth and absolute poverty in Uganda, using household survey data for 3 cycles. The introduction of my thesis defined poverty as follows. Poverty is hunger. Poverty is lack of shelter. Poverty is being sick and not being able to see a doctor or nurse. Poverty is not having access to school and not knowing how to read. Poverty is not having a job. Is fear for the future. Living a day at a time. Poverty is losing a child to illness brought about by unclean water and malnutrition. Poverty is powerlessness, lack of representation and freedom. Now, these indicators of poverty are bounding to an extent that even if you have some income, one may not be having enough to satisfy all of those indicators. And therefore, the importance of multidimensional poverty index. As we listen in today's dissemination, this monograph will give us data and statistics that helps us understand the multiple deprivations individuals and households face, and they also help us to know how far we have gone in achieving SDG Goal 1 of eradicating poverty in all its forms. These indicators should equip government and policymakers with up-to-date data looking beyond income poverty and focusing on other challenging indicators, especially in understanding how we can do targeting poverty more than the established districts. But I don't know why people have not looked at that thesis and curb the proliferation of districts. Because even when the center and other efforts of targeting resources go, it ends up in the pockets of the elites, the local elites. And that research also shows why PDM has largely fallen in the same trap. So, honorable guest of honor, I think policymakers should be interested in this research work to, when they are implementing new targeted programs, to avoid the pitfalls that we are seeing in the fiscal decentralization. As we disseminate these findings today, I encourage all stakeholders to make full use of the data generated to strengthen policies, programs, and interventions aimed at improving the poverty index to 0, to ensure that every Ugandan is uplifted from poverty in all its forms. More critically, I want to encourage the media, in particular, to propagate these statistics further to wider usage without distorting the understanding and interpretation of the multidimensional poverty index. I've never told you what we are measuring in multidimensional poverty index, which is beyond absolute poverty. Now, today cannot be any other day, because you can see over 20 years ago I started the work on poverty. Today I disseminated my dimension on poverty, and it is my birthday. So, Honorable Minister, it's a coincidence, but a very good coincidence, that we want to give the country, and particularly the policymakers here, we have 3 of them and very influential, to take the results in this report and look deeper, do self and deep reflection as we prepare the next budget to ensure that we address some of these challenges. With those few remarks, I once again welcome each of us here and wish you nice deliberations for God and my country.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very big hand clap to the Chief Statistician of Uganda for such a powerful welcome remarks. Edie, I wanted to break the good news of birthday, but you have helped me. So, ladies and gentlemen, today is Edie's birthday. Now that he has already broken the news, let me only emphasize that if you know you have carried chocolates, flowers, gift hampers, please just warm up, keep them. We are going to declare when, where, time, on when you will hand over the gifts to ED. Are we together, members? This is both internal and even to the external stakeholders. So you will join me to sing a birthday song for ED later. You wanted to sing now? Very good. Can we now stand up and sing for ED a birthday message? You see, I wanted to see how the feeling would be if I postponed the song. But since there was a majority yes to sing now, we are now going to sing now, and then we continue. Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Edie. Happy birthday to you. Don't ask how old, okay? So, Doctor, we want to wish you a very happy birthday today. We pray for God to guide you, give you wisdom, protect you in good health, keep you stronger as you continue to lead the National Task Office, and also giving, of course, guidance to the whole nation. We thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for singing for Edie, that very beautiful birthday song. We are going to have a very important session of opening the dissemination today. And this message shall not be delivered by any other person other than the Chairman, Board of Directors of Uganda Bureau of Statistics, who's here, the chairperson, Madam Irene Birungi. Let us put up a big hand clap to welcome her, to give us the remarks of the board, and also declare this dissemination workshop open. Thank you.
Didakas is teasing me, I should use the yellow mic. Yes, I believe it's still good morning. Good morning, everyone. You're all most welcome. And our dear guest of honor and a friend of mine, Honorable Amos Lugolobi, the Minister of State, Finance, Planning and Economic Development. We are so honored to have you this morning. The World Bank, country representatives, or representatives from the development partners, representatives from government, ministries, departments, and agencies here this morning, the executive chairpersons, our honorable members of parliament who are here, of the parliamentary committee, we are so grateful to have you. Members of the UBOS board of directors, the executive director, who we are honored to have a historical day as celebrating you today morning. The media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen, and all of you in your own respective capacities, good morning once again. My name is Irene Birungi Mugisha, and I'm here in the capacity of the chairperson of Uganda Bureau of Standards. And we are so grateful, Uganda Bureau of Statistics, apologies, and we are grateful to have you this morning. So ladies and gentlemen and Honorable Minister, on behalf of the Board of Directors, Uganda Bureau of Statistics, this morning I wish to welcome you to this important occasion where we plan to disseminate the Multidimensional Poverty Index, Census, that is the monograph of 2024, Volume 5. The board takes great pride in fostering the enabling environment and overseeing the production of quality official statistics that support evidence-based planning, monitoring, and evaluation of government programs. And we're glad to hear this morning what our Honorable Minister has tried to move at the Finance Parliamentary Committee. And that will totally make a difference at UBOS. Reliable data is not only for technical requirement for policymakers, but also a strategic national asset that does enable government, the private sector, and the public to make informed decisions that do improve the lives of our own citizens. As we gather here today, this morning, ladies and gentlemen and Honorable Minister, the dissemination event, I cannot overemphasize the importance of quality statistics in supporting the success of government programs. For instance, right from the National Development Plan 1 to the current NDP 4, the progressive evaluations of government programs consistently indicate that statistics is an essential and integral part of the development processes, especially for this country, Uganda. Therefore, I am happy to reiterate that government has been alert and focused on achieving the goal of eliminating poverty. We can't emphasize this more. And all this and its dimensions since the inception of the Poverty Eradication Action Plan in the 1990s. I'm therefore happy that UBOS continues to avail quality, up-to-date indicators that are critical for all of us to focus so as to achieve this main objective of localizing SDG targets, measurable and easily quantifiable through evidential statistics. Honorable Minister would want to know that over the years, since the inception of the Poverty Eradication Action Plan in 1997, government has invested heavily in infrastructure that is such as roads, electricity, with an intention to boost low cost of production of goods and services and with improved market access. Government has also progressively intensified the modernization of agriculture through National Agriculture Advisory Services, that is NADS, and the recently Operational Wealth Creation, or WC, through provision of high-quality agricultural seeds and animal breeds to boost the yield of quantities and consequent value addition for more earnings. With the advent of Parish Development Model, the PDM, which is a broad-based initiative focusing on transforming the grassroots communities by elevating them into money economy. We know that right now, the money economy, we are improving the statistics, as recently mentioned by the President, and therefore, UBOS is playing a key role when we have such kind of interventions. So, being able to have the PDM, which is a broad-based initiative focusing on transforming the grassroots communities by elevating them into money economy, government will hugely benefit from this update availed by UBOS to help tracking the performance of government so that we can ensure success in implementing the programs that are geared towards eliminating poverty and all its multi-dimensional aspects. Honorable Minister, to eliminate poverty in all its forms, the SDG 1 requires there is a need to refocus efforts beyond income poverty and consider all its multiple dimensions. Over the years, we know that, and based on the key statistics from UBOS, the government has overhauled its programs with intent of alienating Ugandans from all multidimensional aspects of poverty and improving human welfare. Therefore, the parish development model and its pillars in one of such interventions that has been introduced by government to become the bridge and gap so as to solve the problem of poverty once and for all. And you all heard it from the ED while he was making his remarks. We therefore need to continue to contribute to this grand objective of UBOS, that is to continue fulfilling its Lubimbi of availing quality official statistics to enable players to make informed decisions. And Didi, I must mention that during the election time, we actually saw how the statistics from UBOS play a key role. So as we continue to disseminate some of these findings and reports from UBOS, we'll encourage our partners to be able to look out for these reports and use them for correct decision making. As I conclude, Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to congratulate the technical team and all the other stakeholders involved in the preparation and processing of data that has been able to culminate into the disseminating of this monograph today, this morning. I therefore want to wish to declare this dissemination workshop officially open for God and my country, and on behalf of the chairman. Thank you so much.
Another very big hand clap to our board chairperson. Thank you so much, Madam Irene Birungi, for opening this session and also giving us the powerful message from the board of Uganda Bureau of Statistics. We are going to have remarks from United Nations Development Program, and I will kindly ask you to put up your hands together for the representative of UNDP. Thank you.
Let me introduce myself. I am not actually officially UNDP resident representative. It's my honor to represent our resident representative, Madam Navani. My name is Thangavel Palanivel. I am senior economic advisor, team leader for strategy policy team at the UNDP office. It's my honor to represent UNDP and represent our resident representative this morning. Our resident representative unfortunately attending similar meetings in NDB, meeting organized by the Office of Prime Minister. Honorable Minister, honorable members of Parliament, the chairperson of the Board of Directors of UBAS, executive directors, other invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, like including our development partner, my own colleagues from UN country teams, civil society organizations, members of the academia, private sector, media, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor, it's a UNDP honor to be part of this, the important launch of the Multidimensional Poverty Index report, a milestone that reinforces the country commitment to the understanding, addressing the various dimensions of poverty, inequality, deprivations within our country. Let me begin by recognizing, appreciating the government of Uganda, particularly the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, the Ministry of Finance, Planning, Economic Development, for their leadership in advancing evidence-based policy-making process. We also acknowledge our development partner whose technical financial support continue to enrich the government in undertaking evidence-based decision-making process. Let me take a minute to highlight why multidimensional poverty index matter for a country like us. Poverty is not only about income. Historically, poverty used to be measured by income. Pretty much 15 years back until 2010. UNDP felt that in 1990, UNDP introduced a broader developmental measure like Human Development Index, which was trying to broaden the development discourse from moving from GDP-oriented, economic-oriented, income-based oriented to a broader developmental dimension, including education, health, standard of living. That was done in 1990 by launching Human Development Report. After almost 20 years of that actual experiences, we thought that we also need to introduce a multidimensional poverty index. So therefore, it is the UNDP actually took a leadership to designing a methodology by working with the Oxford Poverty Human Development Initiative, other teams, and brought out a global multidimensional poverty index report, first time ever in 2010. Since then, every year UNDP bring out a global multidimensional poverty index report, also bring out support to the countries to national multidimensional poverty index report. Some 4 or 5 years back, again, it is a UNDP honor, privilege to work with UBAS to first time ever to estimate multidimensional poverty index numbers for this country. We UNDP brought some experts from Oxford University, other people to work with UBAS for that estimation analysis. So we are now proud today that UNDP actually now enabled the UBAS to do the second report on their own without any technical input from any development partner, whether UNDP or anyone. So that's the actually a real success of capacity development building. Like initially, when there is a new concept, new tools, I mean, the government officials need some kind of domain expertise from internationally or nationally. But after sometimes the success, the government officially able to understand the integrity of estimation, analysis, interpretation, then they're able to do that. So that's something we are proud of, that the success of UBAS is also success of UNDP for actually enabling the capacity development. The multidimensional poverty allows why UNDP actually wanted to push this multidimensional poverty is that the multidimensional poverty is not only actually looking to the income, it's also looking to our honor to highlight that in the last 20-30 years, this country made a great progress in various dimensions of human development. For example, in 2024, Uganda has transitioned from low human development country category into medium human development country category as estimated by UNDP, and that's a real milestone. Similarly, in the same year, the United Nations Secretary at UN DESA also actually come out with the assessment that this country first time ever met graduation threshold for graduating from the least developed country. Like your country, Uganda, is along with other 44 countries, is being designated currently as the least developed country within the developing country world of 170-75 countries. So it is again real milestone that the country is meeting the threshold for graduating from least developed, development country category. This kind of criteria, Human Development Index, graduation for least developed country, is looking into the 15-20 indicator, not just simply income. So that's the success of this kind of things. Again, the country also made great progress. Let me also highlight that in recent years, this country also witnessed rapid poverty reduction. Like during the COVID pandemic, the income poverty used to be 20.3% in 2019-2020. After a few years, that number is now in 23-24, the number came to 16.1. So last 4 years, the country made a remarkable progress reducing even the income poverty. So that's something, again, we are actually wanted to recognize. So despite all those actually success, there are some paradox, there are some challenges, some kind of mixed story. Let me also take a minute or two highlight. The first one is that there is a macro versus micro issue. At the macroeconomic level, the country recording rapid economic growth. Like the country is experiencing 5-6% of the economic growth. But this high-level economic growth has not translated into the improvement of the livelihood at the local level. So that's something we wanted to actually highlight. We hope this report going to highlight. Second, slow structural economic transformation. The country economy in the production side, the country is making a steady progress on moving from a agriculture-based economy into the non-agriculture-based economy. But on the employment side, still like 60% of the labor force still on the agriculture. That's something slow development progress. And the third we wanted to highlight is that while there is a progress on the human development at the macro level, but there are also challenges. And that one, let me highlight that at the macro level, Uganda life expectancy at the birth increased from about 47.6 years in 1990. What that mean? Like child born in 1990 expected to live in this country only 47 years. But now that number increased to is almost 68.3. A child born now can live 68 years now compared to be like 46, 47 years, like 25 years. So that's the success of the health sector. Similarly, on the education side, the expected years of schooling has increased significantly from average 5.7 years in 1990 to now 11.6 years now. What that does it mean? What it's implying? A child who now enter in a primary school, first grade, is expected to spend 6 years more, additional year more compared to 30 years back. In 1990, a kids entered to school expected to spend in education, school or college about 5 years, 6 years only. Now that number is increased to 12 years. So these are the, success. But despite that, the human development progress, a child born today is expected to reach only 39% of their productive capacity by adulthood as per the World Bank estimation on the Human Capital Development Index. So in that regard, this kind of analysis, multidimensional poverty, is a very useful. Now let me move to my last part. As Uganda moving towards the modern, inclusive, prosperous society, this multidimensional poverty index provides a powerful tool to enhancing the alignment between planning and the budgetary allocation, especially at the local level when it comes to addressing SDG 1 poverty, or SDG 2 on the nutrition, SDG 3 on the health, SDG 4 on the quality of education, SDG 5 on the gender equality, SDG 6 on energy enhancement, and SDG 10 on addressing multidimensional inequalities. So in that regard, this report is really useful, and we are looking forward to get the key insight of the report, like more precious. That report going to help the government, Ministry of Finance, more precise targeting of public investment, better designing of social protection, a stronger case for climate resilience, inclusive growth, and evidence-based one. To conclude, UNDP remain a committed partner. The UN country team remain committed partner to work with the stakeholder government to eradicate poverty in all dimensions, not just only income dimension, in all dimensions. Through our support on human development analysis, poverty diagnostic, governance reforms, climate resilience livelihood, the UN country team will continue to work hand in with our partner, government official, other partner, to ensure that the analysis, what we're going to get, the insight would be incorporated into the implementation of NDP 4. So this includes strengthening local level planning capacity to use the insight we're going to get today, and strengthening the social protection system, and also integrating innovation, digital tools in the education, health, other dimension, then also promoting policy dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, today launch is more than a statistical exercise. It is a call to deepen our collective ambition to ensure that every citizen in this country, regardless of their geography, gender, age, socioeconomic standing, has the opportunity to live a life of dignity, security, and opportunity. I congratulate the government of Uganda on behalf of the UN country team and the other development partner for the successful estimation analysis launch on their own government without, any development partner technical support. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Our guest of honor, the chairperson of the board, Chief Statistician of Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our experts talk. I hope you have listened. And also, I would like to encourage all of us to treat every paragraph with the importance it deserves. Can we then therefore clap for the representative to them from the UNDP for such a wonderful remarks? Thank you so much. You had the figures, you had the interventions, the support by UNDP. It is so rich and deserving. So we thank you. On that note, therefore, we are joined by a representative of the World Bank, who's also going to speak to us right now. And I want to take this opportunity to invite the expert on economics from the World Bank, John. You'll call a big hand clap for him as he comes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is John Lukor. I bring you greetings from the country management unit, headed by the country manager. She was supposed to be here, but she was overbooked in terms of meetings, and as we speak now, she's in another meeting, which I was supposed to be. Thank you. I think the yellow is running away by itself because, okay. Honorable Minister, the Executive Director, UBOS, members of Parliament present, the UNDP rep, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am privileged to be here today to be attending the launch of the Multidimensional Poverty Report that has been extracted from the census of population census of Uganda. The World Bank and UBOS have had a very strong, long relationship in the production of statistics, and that's why I couldn't miss this event. We have been engaged in many surveys from the UNPS, the integration of the UNPS to AIS, and we have been using this data in many reports that we produce at the World Bank. For example, the country climate development report, economic updates, poverty and equity analysis that we always conduct almost yearly, and among other reports that we do. We also use this data in the design of our programs, evaluation of our programs, and targeting. We have also been collaborating in the production of a UNHS, which has been the main data set that have been used for production of poverty statistics. And for long, in this relationship, we've been using the UNHS, and we've been producing or defining poverty primarily using a single metric, that is income. And I think that's what we'll be discussing here. Of course, income is very essential because everybody feels cash. Everybody talks about money, and money is very important in everybody's life, and that's why income is something that we pick. But of course, although very important and useful, it only gives you probably a sliver of truth. As you have heard from the Executive Director's presentation, the UNDP representative presentation, there's a lot to poverty that we need to be looking into. Today, UBOS, through its dynamic leadership, headed by the Executive Director, Dr. Chris, it is very rare that people have a population census and then produce 5 products. Most times, once they release the report, everybody goes to sleep. But in UBOS, things are changing, and that's something that's characteristic of UBOS leadership and dynamic thinking, creativeness, and among others. So they have developed this multidimensional report, and these reports provide a very clear picture on the poverty structure for Uganda. The milk, I can extract the blood. Very grateful to you, boss, for being able to take this data and produce this work together with the support of the UNDP. We are very grateful. As I conclude, I want to thank the Honorable Minister. You know, for every dissemination I've attended, I found the Honorable Minister attending. And that's very difficult for any politician. And I think that's why we have the greatest support, and we're producing these data sets. And I'm very sure we should be asking the hardy questions. I also want to thank the board, because in my time in working with you, boss, this is the closest I've found the board working closely with the executive. So again, thank you, madam. And the executive director. And you can see it's very rare for politicians to be on the table. And usually as statisticians and economists, we always tend to neglect the politicians. Dr. Chris, thank you for bringing all the stakeholders on the platform. I'll end here, and again, thank you, boss, for producing this report, and I'll be glad to all part of the process. Thank you.
A big hand clap for John, Dr. John. Thank you for those remarks and for the assurance of your institution, and also words of appreciation to Uganda Bureau of Statistics and the board for the good job well done. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going now to receive the findings from the experts of statistics. We are going to have two presenters, and I will encourage ourselves to listen attentively. I will also request the ED with his entire team to remain there and view right on the screen which is here present. Our guest of honor would like also to inform you that we are live online, YouTube channels, and all the dissemination platforms of the Bureau are on. We are being followed by quite a number of people, but for the interest of time, I'll not give the statistics now, but we can share it later. So thank you so much. Allow me therefore to invite our lead presenter to come and share with the institution and all the participants here the findings from the report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Didakas. Good morning, everybody. I am following up on the protocol built earlier, and I'm going to give the initial part of the presentation, which will give an introduction, and then sorry, I hadn't introduced myself. I am Stephen Bariyahirwa. I am the head of the Department for Social Surveys and Censuses, who carry out most of the surveys in the Bureau, especially those of the household nature. So I'm going to talk about the introduction. It's not moving. I think they didn't check it to see that it moves. Sorry about that IT issue. So that is the outline of the presentation we are going to make. We shall have an introduction, methodology, key findings, and then the summary. This had been explained earlier by the ED. We had the census, which is our source of information, source of the data that we used in computing this multidimensional poverty index. We had the final report, we had the projections, and we have produced a number of monographs. So today we are on the 5th monograph on the multidimensional poverty index. I don't know what they're doing there now. Eh? It was moving weird, what? Okay, we start with the definition. The multidimensional poverty measures, it is a measure of poverty that captures simultaneous deprivations experienced by individuals across all dimensions of life. We had been informed, and all of us know, that we have been computing a poverty number, but this poverty number was basically coming from the expenditures and consumption, which we normally call the income poverty, but this one is more robust as it looks at different deprivations from the different dimensions of life. So we shall look at different deprivations in health, education, living standards, and basic services, among the many. This one was also talked about by the SDG. The rationale of doing this is to make sure we tackle SDG number 1, which is to eliminate poverty in all its forms. And as the previous speakers have said, poverty is not only in one form, it is in different lackings that individuals undergo, and it requires including these forms in their holistic holiness to make sure we do what? We get that this MPI. It does not replace, the MPI does not replace the income poverty that we have been producing, but it complements that index. So we're going to look at the methodology that was used in computing this index. The methodology used was adopted from the ARCA and Foster methodology from the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative office at the University of Oxford, who are the first people to come up with this method of measure of poverty. And we had to adapt it to Uganda's context. What I mean here is that we had to look at dimensions that are applicable to Uganda, not picking the dimensions and indicators that that group was using to come up with an MPI. So the MPI identifies who is poor by considering the incidence, which is the number, and then the intensity of the deprivations they suffer. How severe that the number of those deprivations are. So the incidence is measured by looking at the number that are deprived in a number of indicators based on the cutoff that was set. And then the intensity looks at the average percentage of dimensions in which these people are deprived. So the MPI is a product of the two. So the steps used in constructing this MPI, first of all, we had to select the dimensions of deprivation, and these dimensions were selected with other stakeholders in the country, including EPRC and other MDAs. We had to agree on the number of indicators in each dimension, and we had to set up deprivation cutoffs, as I will explain in the coming slides. How do you classify that somebody is poor in this dimension or is deprived in this dimension? Then we had to get weights for each dimension and the indicator therein. And then we had to count deprivations per person, the weighted deprivations. And then we had to also count the dimensional poor individuals. After getting those, then we get the product to come up with our index. Now, looking at the weighting procedure, we selected those 4 indicators. So those 4 dimensions, and each dimension was assigned the same weight of a quarter. A quarter times 4 gives us 1 unit. So all dimensions were taken to be equally important. Within each dimension, we had indicators, and each indicator within that dimension was also given the same weight. The precondition that we had is each dimension had the same relevance as the way I've explained, and the cutoff we had was that a person was required to be deprived in at least 2 in every 5 of the weighted indicators, which is the 40%, to be identified as multidimensionally poor. So these are the dimensions and the indicators that we used here in Uganda. And in education, we covered years of schooling. I'm going to elaborate further in the next slide how we used that indicator. And then school attendance. Health, we used the question that we had asked whether there was a death in the household in the past 12 months. Then we also used having health insurance. Then we looked at basic services, which included access to improved drinking water, access to improved toilet facility, sources of energy for lighting, cooking fuel, and technology. Then on living standards, we looked at the housing materials of the houses where our people live. Then we had also to look at overcrowding. How do they sleep in the household? Do they have enough rooms for sleeping? Then we had to look at the asset ownership. Then we had to look at the unemployment indicator, and then how people use financial services. One is looking at education. You know, we are looking at quality education, and quality. Then for school attendance, we looked at any child of school-going age, 6 to 12 years. We chose 6 years to 12, because we know in Uganda, the official starting age is 6 years for P1, and by 12 you would be in P7. So we want to see if there is any child who is supposed to be going to school, in the primary school, aged to 6 to 12 years, that is not attending school. If we found any household had that child that was in that age range and was not attending school, then that household would be classified, rather those individuals within that household would be classified as deprived. Because you know there is UPE, there are many other schools, and you have a child who is in that age range but is not going to school. Then in the health dimension, still there are 2. That's why you see their weight is a quarter, because they have shared that weight for the dimension. We used 2 indicators. The one of them was at least 1 death in the household in the last 12 months. We asked in the census, did any death occur in the household in the last 12 months? If any household reported that, then that would be deprived. Then the other one was on health insurance, where we asked if there is nobody in the household with any kind of health insurance, that household would be deprived, and therefore all individuals in that household would be deprived. Then the other dimension was on basic services, where we have access to improved water, access to a toilet facilities, source of energy for lighting, and cooking oil and technology. This dimension, as I mentioned, they all had a quota because there are 4 dimensions and they were equally weighted. So since we have 4 indicators here, they shared the weight of the quota, so each one is 1/16, 1/16. And indeed that last column is explaining about which SDG indicator we are talking about. So the cutoffs that we had under the access to improved drinking water, if the household does not have access to improved drinking water, according to the SDG guidelines, and according to what we know as improved water is using water from a tap, protected water, protected boreholes, and all those things according to that definition, they would be deprived. Or if they had that clean water, but you have to move longer, you have to have a 30-minute walk for going and collecting that water, then we would also describe it as deprived. Then for improved toilet facilities, we looked at if a household has no toilet facility, or the toilet facility is unimproved. Unimproved toilet facilities are those like if you have a pit latrine with no slab, with what, that is unimproved, we would take that one to be deprived. Or if households were sharing toilets, one household, members of one household use the same toilet with members of another household, regardless of how it is, we would take those households to be deprived. Then the other one, the source of energy for lighting. If the source of lighting was not electricity, be it national grid, mini grid, or solar, or a generator, or other sources of clean energy that you may know for lighting, e.g. biogas, if they're not using that kind of lighting, we would take those households to be deprived, and indeed, hence all the members within those households. Then for cooking fuel, if household cooked using cow dung, shrubs, wood, charcoal, coal, kerosene, gasoline, diesel as the primary source, we would ask what is the main source of cooking fuel for this household. You know, most of us use sometimes duo. You can be having a gas cooker, but at the same time you have charcoal, and most of the time you use charcoal. So we would ask what is the main, and indeed, if the main was charcoal, then that would be captured, and we would take that household and the individuals therein as deprived. Then the last dimension is living standards. This one looked at a number of items, 5 of them, and as I mentioned, we had the dimensions were weighted equally. Since they had 5, they had to share the indicator, rather they had to share the weight, 5 of them, and each one was weighted with 1 out of 20. That column explained the SDG, which that indicator is answering. So on housing material, the first issue was, if the household had inadequate housing material in any of the 3 housing materials, floor, roof, and walls. What this means, if a household had iron sheets, but the wall is mud and water, and the floor is like screed or what, then that one will be deprived. If they had a roof that is tiles, and the walls are permanent and the floor is permanent, then that would be not deprived. So if any of the three components of floor, roof, and wall was not permanent, we would take that household as deprived. Then the next indicator we used is overcrowding. The census asked how many rooms in that household were used for sleeping. And we already know how many people are in every household because we started by getting, tell me all the members of this household, and we know. So if we know there are 10 members and they have 2 rooms for sleeping, we would just divide 10 by 2 and we get an index of 5. If there was more than 3 people in a room, we would just say this household is deprived. That's how that indicator was working. If there are 2 people and they have 2 rooms, then they wouldn't be deprived. Then the other indicator was on asset ownership. We had a set of assets that were asked. Do you own a TV, a radio, a telephone, a computer, a bicycle, a motorcycle, a boat, a donkey, a cattle, you have cattle, and what? So this one, we used it to compute the deprivation if you owned any 2 assets, say a radio and a TV, you would not be deprived. If you owned a telephone and a computer, you would not be deprived. But if you owned only a radio and you didn't have any of all those other assets, you would be deprived. So you were supposed to have at least 2 of those assets. Now, if you owned a car or a truck, we wouldn't bother about the other assets. It would automatically make you not deprived. That's how that indicator worked. Then the other one was on unemployment. You know, we have an SDG indicator whose intention is to make sure everybody is employed. So this one was looking at members of the household who are of working age population. Are they employed? If any of them was unemployed, then the whole of that household would be taken as deprived. If a person was available and was looking for work, was available for work and didn't have any work, among those aged, that age range, then they would be taken as deprived. Then the other last one was a household and its members would be deprived if you have members of 16 years and above, if you don't have anybody who uses financial services and you don't use mobile money. Say you don't have anybody in the household who is aged 16 years and above who has a bank account or who keeps money in an established formal institution or does not use the mobile money, then that household would be taken as deprived. Which one? Yes, unemployment. Unemployment is at least 1 member of working age is unemployed or is not in employment. Yes, you become unemployed if you are looking for work, available for work. That's how you become unemployed. So if that household has 3 people and 2 of them are working, they have jobs, they are working, but one of them is there, is looking for work, is available for work, anytime he gets that work, but he has no work, then the whole of that household would be classified as deprived. Yeah? If he is looking for work, you must fulfill all the conditions for being unemployed. If you are not looking for work, then you are not unemployed. Because you should be actively looking for work to show that you are available to work. So lastly, I have been using household and individual interchangeably, but here our unit of identification was a household, because most of these questions were asked at household level. Like, does this household have a TV? Do they have a radio? What is the source of light? What is the source of cooking for a household? But when it came to analyzing and computing our indicators, we had to go to individuals, because we have to talk about persons who are deprived. So the unit of identification was household, and our unit of analysis was the individual. That's why we are saying whenever we would identify something that concerns the household, they are deprived or not, that code will be given to all members of that household. So that's all I had to present. My colleague is going to come and take us about on the key findings. He will introduce himself. I don't want to mix up his name since it is a bit complicated.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Keynote number 1 is my name, Muhondo Gwa Eremia. I'm a statistician here at Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Since the preamble has already been given, let us go straight to the key findings of multidimensional poverty index. On the 27th mark. So whoever is from 0 to 27 is in the burden of multidimensional poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring your attention to the percentage of persons the 27. We mean in every 100 persons, 27 have the burden of multidimensional poverty. For every 100, 27 of them. Yes, and they are simultaneously deprived across all multiple dimensions. Moving on, let me bring your attention to the percentage of persons who are multidimensional poor and deprived in each of the 13 indicators. It is within the presentation. As we move on, ED, we'll be able to expound it. Thank you. I was bringing your attention to the persons who were multidimensionally poor and deprived in each of the 13 indicators that have been explained before. So we start with the highest. Nationally, we see about 53 in every 100 persons were multidimensionally poor and deprived in health insurance. That was closely followed by about 52 in every 100 persons who were multidimensionally poor and deprived in cooking fuel and technology. Not forgetting the list, which is about 2 in every 100 who are multidimensionally poor and deprived if any household experienced a death in the last 12 months. That is the lowest. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring your attention to multidimensional poverty index by rural and urban. We've already seen nationally. We see it it is higher in the rural areas at about 32 in every 100 persons. That is the multidimensional poverty for the rural areas, higher compared to about 19 every 100, or call it 0.193 in terms of the index in urban areas. Notably, we are going to look at percentages of persons who were multidimensionally poor and deprived in each indicator by residence. So we see of those who were multidimensionally poor and deprived in health insurance, we see the highest is rural, which is about 61 in every 100, coming from rural areas, compared to a nearly 39 in every 100 persons in the urban areas. But if we run through the other indicators, we can see it is closely followed by cooking fuel and technology, which is about the same for rural areas in cooking fuel and technology, for those who are multidimensionally poor and deprived in cooking fuel and technology, at 60 persons in every 100 for rural areas, compared to about 13 in every 100 persons in urban areas. But if we look at housing materials, you may wish to look at the indicator of housing materials. There is a large, almost a half, or even about half of the discrepancy of those who are multidimensionally poor and deprived in housing materials in rural areas, sitting at 52 in every 100, compared to about 26 in every 100. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring your attention to the percentage contribution to the multidimensional poverty index that we are discussing today. We are looking at how each indicator is contributing to the MPI, coming highest from the bottom. Coming from the highest is health insurance, is nationally 24%. Health insurance contributes 24% to the MPI. When you disaggregate it by rural and urban, we see it slightly higher in urban at 25% contribution, followed by the indicator cooking fuel and technology. All of the three, national and urban and rural, almost sitting all at 12%. The scale goes on up to the list, which is the indicator of unemployment. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring your attention to multi-dimensional poverty index by household head characteristics. We have the characteristic of sex of household head. We have education level of household head. We also have the category of age of household head. Let me begin with the sex of the household head. We see the multidimensional poverty index is higher in female-headed households, registered at about 29 in every 100 person, or call it 0.289, compared to the male-headed households who were reported at 0.262. The second characteristic is education level of household head. We see the highest reported amongst household heads that had not attained no formal education, reported highest at about 44 in every 100 persons, or in terms of the index, 0.435. It is followed by those who had attained some primary, and the scale moves on as the levels of education of the household head increase. Age of household head, we are seeing the highest multidimensional poverty index among household heads that were aged less than 10 years at 0.363, or call it 36 in every 100 persons. But if you would see that scale towards the higher age group of 80 plus, you will see it is also high at about 32 in every 100 household heads. Ladies and gentlemen, key to note, I would like to bring your attention to my dimension poverty index by sub-region. Constitutionally, are the 17 sub-regions. Now, important to note, let us look at the dark shades, which represent those that have the highest. The highest is reported in Karamoja sub-region. It was reported at about 57 in every 100 persons in Karamoja sub-region. It was followed by West Nile at about 39 in every 100. And the lowest to note is in Kampala at 0.088. We will continue to see more disaggregations. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me bring your attention to percentage of people who are multidimensionally poor and deprived. We pulled out a snippet of those two hard-hit sub-regions, that is Karamoja and West Nile. We wanted to know within each indicator how far enough they're deprived. So we look at the indicator that was reported the highest, about 90 in every 100 were multidimensionally poor and also deprived in cooking, fuel, and technology. That is in Karamoja. But we see almost Karamoja with health insurance, housing materials, it is sitting at about the same, 90 in every 100. For health insurance, housing materials. We also look at West Nile, still more deprivation, and also multidimensionally poor in cooking fuel and technology at about 72 in every 100. It's not slightly any different under health insurance. For West Nile, we see 73 in every 100 deprived and also multidimensionally poor in health insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to proceed and take you to Buganda sub-region. Buganda sub-region, the sub-region multidimensional poverty is 0.182, or call it 18 in every 100 persons. But notably, I want you to look at Buvuma, which has the highest, reported about 43 in every 100 persons to be having the burden of multidimensional poverty. In terms of index, it is 0.43. The lowest, Buvuma, is the dark shade bottom right, dark shade bottom right on the map at 0.43, and the lowest was reported in Wakiso at 0.091. That is Buganda, but if you look at Buganda, you see that its MPI is lower than the national average, so it may also be key to note. Allow me to proceed, ladies and gentlemen, to the Multidimensional Poverty Index for districts in Busoga. Districts in Busoga sub-region, the sub-regional multidimensional poverty for Busoga is still lower than the national average at 0.259. But I would notably wish to bring your attention to the highest, which is Namayengo, which was reported at 0.373, or if you'd wish to call it 37 in every 100 persons. The lowest was reported in Jinja City, which was reported at about 14 in every 100, or in terms of index, 0.142 in Jinja City as the lowest. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to proceed to Bukedi sub-region. Bukedi sub-region, the sub-regional multidimensional poverty index for Bukedi is higher than the national average, and it is reported at about 31 in every 100, or call it 0.309. The highest recorded in Bukedi is none other than Butareja at about 34 in every 100 persons reported to be having a burden of multidimensional poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, the lowest in Bukedi is reported at about 25 in every 100, and that is none other than Busia. Allow me proceed to Bugisu sub-region. Bugisu sub-region, also key to note is that its sub-regional multidimensional poverty is higher than the national average, reported at about 30 in every 100%. The highest contributing district here is Bulambuli. Bulambuli at about 34 in every 100 persons, or call it in terms of the index, 0.339. The lowest was reported at 19 in every 100, and it is none other than Mbale City. Ladies and gentlemen, Sebei sub-region formed out the three districts, Kwen, Buko, Kapchora, and we see for Sebei, the sub-regional multidimensional poverty is higher than the national average, and the highest contributing district is Kwen at 36 in every 100 persons having the burden of multidimensional poverty. You can see the lowest being about 31 in every 100 in Kapchora. That's a sub-region. Let me bring your attention to the sub-regional multidimensional poverty index for Teso, which is lower than the national average and reported at about 24 in every 100. The highest contributing is Kapirebyong, and it was reported at 31 in every 100 persons, or in terms of index, call it 0.307. Lowest was Soroti City. Soroti City was the lowest in Teso sub-region and was reported at 14 in every 100 persons having the burden of multidimensional poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, let us proceed to Karamoja sub-region. Karamoja sub-region, we see the multidimensional poverty index was about 57 in every 100. And it is higher than the national average. But the biggest contributing district to this burden is Kabong. Kabong was reported at about 64 in every 100 persons. Closely followed in second was Amdat. Amdat reported in about 62 in every 100 having the burden of multidimensional poverty in Karamoja. Followed in third is Kotido at about 61 in every 100. Of course, the lowest coming from none other than Abim at about 38 in every 100 reported to have that burden of multidimensional poverty index. Dear listeners, let me bring your attention to Lango sub-region. We have Lango sub-region, and the multidimensional poverty is slightly lower than the national average at about 26 in every 100 persons, with the highest contributing district being Otuke at about 32 in every 100 persons, or in terms of index, call it 0.321. The lowest in Lango sub-region, ladies and gentlemen, is Lira City. Lira City reported to have about 16 in every 100 persons being multidimensionally poor here in Lira City, Lango sub-region. Let me bring your close attention to Acholi sub-region. Acholi sub-region, the sub-regional multidimensional poverty was reported at 32 in every 100 persons, or call it 0.323 in terms of index, with the highest contributing district as Amuru. The one that had the highest is Amuru at 0.414, or call it 41 in every 100 persons. And the lowest was Gulu City at about 16 in every 100, or in terms of index 0.164. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Acholi sub-region. We see its sub-regional MPI being higher than the national average. Ladies and gentlemen, West Nile sub-region. Remember, it was one of the hard-hit ones, and here it comes back in terms of districts, seeing its sub-regional multidimensional poverty index still higher than the national average, reported at 39 in every 100, with the highest contributing district, or the district with the highest multidimensional poverty burden, as Yumbe. Yumbe, not Yumbe, beg your pardon. It is Zombo, 44 in every 100 persons, followed by Yumbe, and there in third, followed by Pakwach. The lowest was reported in Arua City at 27 in every 100 persons having the burden of multidimensional poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, Madi sub-region. Madi sub-region constituted of Ajumani, Obongi, and Moyo, having the sub-regional multidimensional poverty still higher than the national average at 29 in every 100 persons, and the highest being Obongi. Obongi at 33 in every 100 persons having the burden of multidimensional poverty. Let me bring your attention to Bunyoro sub-region. We see Bunyoro sub-region, the multidimensional poverty for the whole sub-region is still higher than the national average at 30 in every 100 persons having the burden of multidimensional poverty. And the highest was reported as Vulisa at 37 in every 100 persons having that burden. The lowest, ladies and gentlemen, was reported in Hoima City. I think you've successively seen the cities having a lower burden of the multidimensional poverty. Key to note. Hoima City at about 11 in every 100 persons. Toro sub-region. Here you are. Toro sub-region. The sub-regional multidimensional poverty was reported at about 31 in every 100, or in terms of index, call it 0.313. It is still higher than the national average, with the highest district, with the district with the highest multidimensional poverty burden as Chegegwa at about 37 in every 100 persons. The lowest city again, we see it in Toro as Fort Portal City at about 16 in every 100 persons reported to have the burden of multidimensional poverty index. Dear listeners, Rwenzori sub-region. The multidimensional poverty index for Rwenzori sub-region, which constitutes in Toroko, Bundibujo, Kasese, was reported at 32 in every 100 persons to have that burden of multidimensional poverty, still higher than the national average, with the highest contributing district as the Toroko, they're about 37 in every 100 persons having the burden of multidimensional poverty. Ankole sub-region. Ankole sub-region, we see the total multidimensional poverty for Ankole sub-region is slightly less than the national average at 26 in every 100 persons, or in terms of the index, call it 0.258. The highest contributing in Ankole sub-region is none other than Buhezu. Buhezu, if you can see in the middle of the map, Buhezu at about 33 in every 100 persons were reported to have the burden of multidimensional poverty in Buhezu. Closely followed was Isinjiro. Isinjiro, on the map, it is bottom right, reporting in second, was reported in second at 32 in every 100, or call it 0.324 in Isinjiro, who had the burden of multidimensional poverty. Lowest, usual suspect, Mbara City, because it is a city as we've seen successively, Mbara City, 0.27, that is 13 in every 100 persons having the burden in Mbara City, that is Ankole sub-region. Ladies and gentlemen, Kigezi sub-region. Kigezi sub-region, we see the multidimensional poverty index for Kigezi is slightly higher than the national average at about 29 in every 100 persons, or in terms of index, 0.286. The highest contributing district, or the one that has the highest burden of multidimensional poverty index in Kigezi, is Rwanda. It was reported at 35 in every 100 persons having the burden of multidimensional poverty. It was closely followed by Kisoro at 33 in every 100 persons having the burden of multidimensional poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, the lowest is Rukunjiri district, coming at 24 in every 100 persons, having the burden of multidimensional poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, importantly, let me bring you to the summary of the findings that have been disseminated. To start us off, the MPI for Uganda was reported at 0.27. So we said on the scale of 0 to 100%, we are on the 27th mark. So from 0 to 27, all are have a burden of multidimensional poverty in Uganda. So in that scale of 0 to 100, the lower you get, I would say, the better, because you are shrinking that burden of multidimensional poverty. Karamoja sub-region had the highest, if you remember, or if I may, 8.2, or call it about 10 in every 100 persons. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. And
our guest of honor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have listened from the experts, and they have shared very elaborately the findings in this report. But just to take note is that for this particular report, the index presented in a scale of 0 to 1. The lower, the closer you are to 0, the better for you. The more you move towards 100, the worse situation you'll be getting to. We have also taken note of some of the terminologies, dimensions, deprivation, indicators, household index, poverty, incidence, intensity. Now, we must observe those words and use them carefully. We are also grateful that the presentation has been made both at a national level and sub-regional level, so nobody is left behind. Can we clap for the Bureau? Guest of honor, you will allow me to quickly open a session where we shall be listening from all the participants here before you make your final remark. So we are going to move the microphone among the audience. Please feel free, give comment, and it should be as brief as not beyond 2 minutes. Thank you. John, let's have this. Go through the audience. We start with you, NDP. There's a hand here.
My comments is very simple, short. I wish actually the presenter should have compared with the. I wish actually the presenter compared with the previous estimates of the multidimensional poverty index or the incident and intensity. My understanding is that the previous one is done based on the household survey. This one is census. So apart from the difference is the source of data difference, but the number seems to be increased. The incident, the percentage of people who consider living under the multidimensional poverty used to be like 44% somewhere 2016, 2017, then came down 42.1% in 2020-21. Now it seems to be gone back to 56, 57. I just really wanted to know whether, if you look at the incident of the poverty, is increased. Similarly, the index, multidimensional poverty index, that also seems to be increased. It used to be like 23, 24, 25, but now it's went to 27. So I just wanted to know, understanding whether it does not make sense to me when in the middle of the pandemic, poverty was low. Now, when the economy is booming, poverty increased. So I attribute that it could be due to the data difference. So that's what I wanted to get to know. The source of data probably playing some role, because the previous one based on household consumption survey, this one is the census data. I just want to get some insight from the experts. Thank you.
Thank you. The experts are here, and they will actually respond to that. Any other hand? Okay, from United Nations Resident Coordinator's Office.
Do I have to stand?
Yes, please.
Thank you for the presentation. For me, first of all, I would like to thank the ED for his leadership. We started this conversation about multidimensional poverty analysis, I think in around 2018, and the Bureau has now taken it over. So for the UN, this is something that we celebrate, because it means that the capacity building is actually working. And it's not a surprise that UBOS is one of the best statistical offices on the continent. For me, looking at the MPI and the score that the country has in terms of the different dimensions in which Ugandans are deprived, it seems to be closely aligned to the poverty rate when you use the international poverty line. And for me, that implies that the multidimensional poverty assessment gives a better picture of the poverty situation in Uganda than the monetary poverty line that we have currently. And since we have the minister here and the member of parliament, Honorable Ekanya, and the lady honorable member of parliament, I think we need to use this opportunity to reflect honestly as a country whether the current monetary poverty line that we are using to make decisions is still relevant and fit for purpose. So if we see the multidimensional poverty line giving us a score that seems to be to give a better picture of the true poverty situation in Uganda, then we probably need either to revise our monetary poverty line as well, so that it is more aligned to the international poverty line, or we simply change our policy processes to start using multidimensional poverty assessment to make decisions so that we can get more people out of poverty. And then the last one is on the unemployment. If some of you noticed, the unemployment issue seems to be increasingly becoming associated with the urban population. So we need to rethink where we direct our interventions when it comes to creating employment. So the problem of unemployment, given the statistics that we have seen now, is not only linked to the rural areas. And therefore, as we target the rural areas, we also need to equally, or even with more effort, target the urban areas so that we can address the unemployment issue. And some of the recent analyses that were produced by UBOS clearly indicate that we are starting to increasingly see an increase in urban poverty, and which also aligns with the unemployment score that we see here in the multidimensional poverty analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that marks the end of the plenary. Okay. Yeah, because, okay, please. There is a hand there. You start the other side, then you come here and, okay. But very quick, I said the maximum 2 minutes.
Okay, I just have specific things to raise. So I have one question on the inclusion of insurance, health insurance on the especially indicators of health, and if there's a justification for it, because I think health insurance is also something that I guess you should be thinking about as Uganda right now, because where we are. And I was thinking that we could ask the question on whether I get into an hospital and I'm able to be served, or rethink about the indicators. I think that's something I wanted to, some clarification, the inclusion of health insurance in as one of the indicators. The other one was on employment, and our definition looks at actively looking. But then in the rural areas, people are already in subsistence. Are we not leaving out, because most of the subsistence farmers are actually poor. Are we not leaving them out? I think that's something that we should be thinking about. And then the other key thing for me was actually in terms of household age. I think when I look at the figures, the implications of that on some of our programs that we're having and the need to support. Sorry? Sorry?
What are you talking about, rural?
No, I'm saying that, so we're looking at the way we define unemployment here. So we are looking at actively looking, but in the rural area specifically, people are engaged in the subsistence farming, and therefore they will be actively looking. They're engaging on their rural, in the economic activity, that's farming. And they may not be actively looking. Yeah? Yes, so they're not unemployed, but as we know from our own Igbo statistics as well, people who are actually in subsistence farming, those guys are, those households are poor. So are we not leaving them out in this index? So that's the kind of something. No, it's not about agri, it's about poverty, and poverty in all dimensions, because you see, agriculture is, for Ugandan, where he gets the money to be able to acquire the assets, to get to the hospital, to do all the things in agriculture. So he sells his millet, he sells his sorghum, or cassava, and that's why he gets to get the money to go and get these assets. So that's the kind of interrogation that I want to do. But I understand these are the questions that are in the population census. They may not be very extensive, but I want us to think about that. Thank you.
Okay. There's a hand. I think Minister of Finance. No. And that will be our last. And then we shall put back the microphone to the...
Good afternoon to you, members. Thank you so much, presenters. My name is Emmanuel Semiaga from Makerere University. I've liked the presentation, and basically I've picked some few indicators, and I asked myself some questions. The first question was about how does this MPI, which has been presented, communicate consistently with the income poverty? Because traditionally we used to know that Karamoja sub-region used to be, with the income approach, used to be the poorest region, but recently poverty was shifting using income poverty towards Busoga. But now we are seeing still Karamoja is still the worst. Then in terms of indicator inclusion, health insurance, which has been included. Now I thought that it is high time for government to start a compulsory health insurance scheme for all individuals, because we are seeing that it is very...
Earning enough money to meet your other basic needs, does not matter in employment. But we can discuss and see how we can improve. Health insurance, even the minister had asked me that question. That why health insurance? For us as the citizen, we think countries which have embraced health insurance are doing very well in terms of the health outcomes. In fact, people would adopt preventive mechanisms or whoever is giving the insurance to avert disease incidences. So if I am an insurer and I know malaria is the highest burden, I would ensure that these mosquito insecticides treated mosquitoes are in place and I use it. I would do public health measures. So for us, we have stick on this because we know countries that have used the insurance are doing much better. Our neighbors in Rwanda have, as you say, have compulsory health insurance. Now, for us as decision, we don't go into policy implications or what the policymakers should do. That's why we have Dr. Madina here and the MPs and the minister. We've given you, we have finished our laboratory tests. We have given you clear results. Now go and work. So I have answered both of you. I will later ask Dr. Vincent and his team to answer the issue of is this data comparable? But for me as a layman who is not an expert in the multidimensional, we are taking census data as a baseline, as a benchmark. Now here we are comparing a pigeon with a giant. First of all, the strength of the census data is well known. We can go granular up to the village level. So you can use the census data and MPI more rigorously than the survey data. So I think let's not be tempted into committing a sin of comparing the census data with survey data. I don't know whether my experts will have a different answer to that. Stephen, is that okay? Or they have given me a yes. So I'm trying to summarize because time, as we finished. UN Erosion Coordinator, it has taken off here. Thank you for appreciating and thank you also for pushing us. That's why in the statistical community, we love users more than ourselves because once we have active users, then we improve our product. We improve on the quality and also on the volume of what we produce. So it's up to the users to be poking us to do much more. We can stretch further to do something more. And that is how our national school system will be useful. Now, you are right, of course. When you look at the other previous absolute poverty indicators, although I had already given a footnote that we can't compare, in the last survey, when you use the international poverty line, the numbers are not very different. The numbers are different, but there is no statistical significance in the difference. When you look at the standard errors, the T ratios, they are tight. And when we are publishing the monetary poverty, we also publish the other one. So it's up to users to know which one they should use. We don't want to step on our minister's toes and say, use this. I think after looking at MPI and then the international poverty line, with the data we have been producing, they were advised better. But I think $1 a day is obsolete. Obsolete. It is useless. We should use a better line. After all, we are seeing progress. Being in the first percentile is a very big point, by the way. There are countries which have more than half of their population with their MPI there. Now for us, we are at 25, nearly 25%. So we shouldn't fear anything. Let's face the problem as it is and address it. I think I have summarized all the questions. I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Chief Statistician of Uganda, for summarizing those responses to all our participants today.
I hope the report is now on the website. Yes? I see Flavia doing this. So you should quickly go to the website and start enjoying it. But we shall also give you hard copies. I don't know whether they are ready. Not yet? Not yet. So those who have attended, please make sure they have left their mailing address. They will get them. But you can still continue reading. And as I said, see where we can improve in the future. And there is also so much analysis we can do, even after this one. Madina, over to you in the EPRC. Start now your debate and further analysis.
Thank you, Edie, once again. And through you, Edie, and our guest of honor, we shall have a few remarks from the members of parliament who are here. We have here Honorable Geoffrey Ekanya, our MP from Tororo. We have the Treasurer General of NRM Caucus. She's here. But before they come, Edie and the guest of honor, allow me to share a very short story. In mid-2000, I was in O-level. And by then I had the illusions of becoming a priest. So one day, a teacher who was a PhD holder, a doctor of Latin, East and Southern Sahara, the first one of his kind then, entered the class to teach us Latin. And then he tested us with contemporary philosophy. And he said, I am here. Today I am putting on 2 watches. So as you can see, I have 2 watches. But anyway, why should you mind? I have the money. Then he gave us 5 foolscaps. And he said, I'm going to give you a question. After giving it to all of us, we were 13 in class. I was in senior 4. He asked us a question. The dead are not dead. Discuss. So we started writing, and he gave us 5 minutes to fill all the 5 foolscaps. So we're busy writing. Now, a seminary school is supposed to only have male students. But we were lucky then we had one with a veil. This was a nun. She was trying to catch up with education. So, when 5 minutes ended, he collected our papers, started reading. Most of us had not even finished 1 page. So only this nun had written, the question says, the dead are not dead. Discuss. Then she wrote, I am not yet dead. How can I know? So, now that we know that these statistics which have been presented to us is carrying a lot of value, not just to the nation, but world over. And now that we have policymakers here, we have members of parliament, we have our guest of honor, who's also the minister, we have the members from the development fraternity. I think we now know the level of deprivations in Uganda by region, and we can make good use of it to inform better policies. Edie, thank you for that permission that you allowed me to share that story. Thank you so much. I therefore take this honor to request all of us to clap for Honorable Geoffrey Ikanya in a space of 3 minutes to say something to us. Thank you so much. Give him a big hand clap.
Where do you want me?
Here, Honorable. Then you will have a comfortability to walk back to your seat. It's also an exercise.
Thank you very much. Our chief guest, Honorable Minister, Honorable Mos Lugolobi, the Executive Director of UBOS, the Chairperson of Board of UBOS, my sister, Honorable Nakut, the Deputy ED, representative from Development Partners, the media, ladies and gentlemen of UBOS. Really, I want to thank you very much for granting us opportunity to be here when you are launching this multidimensional index report 2024. Now, the challenge, because of 3 minutes, to me, I see the challenge, Honorable Mos and all of us here, is to bring the champions on board, to appreciate that this model addresses and gives us better information to understand our challenge compared to using the income poverty model. Why do I say so? I have looked at the statistics based on regions, and I have come to appreciate, as much as the ED was saying we don't appreciate, but then he lifted the caveat himself, that Karamoja has always been at that level. You come to Bukedi, you come to West Nile, the trend has always been like that, and you come to Buganda, you come to West Nile. For the few years I've been in Parliament from 1998, especially during that time when we had the speakers like, we have had opportunity to have about 3 lady speakers. And these 3 lady speakers, Beto Kwi from West Nile, Rebecca Kadaga from Busoga, and now we have Anita Mong. These 3 lady speakers always use statistics to advocate in terms of budgeting to address the gender-related gaps in terms of poverty. And I do remember Parliament almost went to a standstill when we looked at the infant mortality report, which was produced by UBOS, and it showed how the situation was glaring and bad. We had to force government to borrow money from the World Bank to put up the health necessary infrastructure to address infant mortality and maternal mortality health situation in the country. But the trend seems to be shifting, where now policymakers are not using the statistics and the report. And therefore, Honorable Mos and my sister and the ED, we need to ensure that there is opportunity for you, Honorable Mos. You get space in the order paper, and we educate the policymakers to appreciate that the intervention that are necessary must be provided for, resource must be provided for during the budget process. What in the recent times, the last 4 years, our budgeting seems to be off the National Development Plan and using the statistics that UBOS produces, because the game parks have been zoned and the soils have lost fertility to give them the necessary yield. And since this, we are not capturing it in our budgeting process. So the aspect of loss and damage in terms of climate needs to come to the forefront as we focus now on green budgeting. With these few words, I want to say thank you very much, and I invite my sister. I've taken over your job.
Thank you, Honorable Ekanya. Honorable Minister Amos Lugolobi, allow me respect the protocol as highlighted by my colleague, the Honorable Ekanya. I am Nakut Faith. I represent the people of Napak in the 11th Parliament, and I have been lucky to continue serving them in that capacity. Napak is one of those districts, as you've seen in the statistics, one of those districts that has the highest numbers of people, 56 out of 100 of people living, so battling with the multidimensional poverty. I am privileged being here today. The Honorable Ekanya and I came here to represent the committee, the Parliamentary Committee of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. I recognize my chairman, the Honorable Amos Kankunda, who delegated this responsibility to the two of us. Perhaps Honorable Amos knew that Honorable Ekanya and I were coming from those districts that need more work. But we are glad we came. I want to appreciate the leadership of UBOS for the work, for the job well done. As the presentation was going on, I was happy to see the indicators, how they were flowing. It improves targeting. It's a good measure. The report is going to help government. For many years, the NRM government has been focusing on how to fight poverty in Uganda. There have been programs upon programs. There was Poverty Action Plan, Ntandikwa, Bonaga Gawale, and now we have the PDM. With a lot of money going into those programs, but the results are minimal. Perhaps it's because there was really not much that government could use to help in the targeting. For instance, when we're rolling out the PDM, it became very hard to look for those 38%. But with these statistics that we now have, it simplifies the work of government, and for which we are very grateful. As you know, our country is still a poor one compared to others. That means we don't have the luxury to do trial and error. You have money to do everything. But when we know where to put in every coin, we can look for outputs from every coin that we spend as a country. The Parliamentary Committee of Finance, Planning and Economic Development is committed to continue supporting the innovative work of Uganda Bureau of Statistics and to support the government of Uganda, and particularly the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, in finding solutions to this multidimensional poverty. There is another thing I have learned in this engagement today, which is positive for the country. I have learned that urbanization is good for Uganda. Because everywhere, in every sub-region, where the numbers are low on multidimensional poverty, it is a city. It's a big town. So it means maybe we should promote it, or we should do everything we should not hinder urbanization. We should not fight it. It's something we should promote as a country. That's one thing I am taking back to the Committee of Finance, that it's a learning from this engagement. I want to thank you again for the interaction, and I wish all of us well. I know that this report that we're launching today will benefit everyone, not just government, but all the people who mean well for our country, Uganda. I believe that one day we will overcome multidimensional poverty and all kinds of poverty. One day, all Ugandans will live a dignified life. And then we will look back and say, where did we start from? This report will be a basis on which we can congratulate ourselves. I want to thank you for listening, and I take this privilege to welcome the guest of honor, the Minister for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, the Honorable Amos Lugolobi, to give his remarks.
Thank you so much, my sister, Honorable Nakut. The UN representative, the World Bank representative, my colleagues, the members of parliament, all representatives from the development partners in your various capacities, the chairman and members of UBO's board of directors who are well represented here, the ED of UBOS and staff who have done a very good job, representatives from government ministries, departments and agencies, the media fraternity, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. First of all, I wish to thank you all for the distinguished roles that you play and the leadership you provide in improving the socio-economic well-being of all Ugandans. We have come from very far. First, we never used to have the figures that we are talking about today. In fact, in terms of the multidimensional poverty index, I want to argue that we now have the baseline data, because we did not have this before. I was involved in the process of preparing the first national development plan. Then I was working with the National Planning Authority, and I could remember the extent to which we suffered in trying to establish the baseline for our national vision so that we could do our aspirations for 30 years. We now have a vision 2040. So we are required to aspire that Uganda will be at this level. So we required a lot of statistics. And Dr. Mukiza was working with the Bureau then. He was not the ED. And we used to work very closely together. And we have continued as such. And he also remembers very well the dilemma we are in, having the baseline data for both the vision, national vision, and also the first national development plan. I'm so glad that today, actually, we seem to be suffering from a problem of oversupply of data. So we have a lot of data, and yesterday while meeting the committee of finance planning and economic development in Parliament, I actually stated that we have a challenge about the users of the statistics that the Bureau is now generating. It's becoming too much for the users. Can we clap for the Bureau? They are doing a wonderful job. You know, when we are doing the census, they would spend a lot of time during that interaction with the respondents. And you'd be wondering, why are they asking all these questions? Little did many of us knew what they were looking for. That they would be coming out with a number of monographs from this census data. You know, now we are getting universally established data. We are not talking about small surveys to get the baseline. We are getting baselines from the entire population of the country. And that is very interesting. So, and that it was very, that arose out of the extensive consultations that they had then. And so now, those of you who participated in the census exercise, by responding, we can now account for those questions that we are putting to you. You are getting disgusted with these enumerators who are asking you so many questions. So this is the accountability, part of the accountability that you are seeing today. So looking at, I did not have the opportunity to comment during the discussions, but looking at the index we are getting, 0.27 out of 1, or call it 27 out of 100 persons, I think we don't seem to be doing very badly. Looking at a number of indicators, we are doing quite well. But of course, for the planners who are now represented by him, and probably myself, we have a job to do, especially in terms of distribution of these various variables that have been used in these indicators, in terms of housing, in terms of health, in terms of various services. You could see, for example, here, the number of people who are deprived in terms of access to improved toilet facilities. 45%. That is still too high, you know, and as far as I'm concerned. And it raises questions as to what extent we are delivering health services, sanitation, water and sanitation, etc. If 45% of the population, you know, this is not a survey, this is a census, are deprived in terms of improved toilet facilities. So for the, it is therefore not accident, those of you who say that we don't use statistics. PDM came as a result of this 33%. And that's why our theme is of the budget is fully monetizing the economy. It was because of this indicator. The good news is that as of May 2024, 23.5% of the households in the subsistence economy had already benefited from PDM funding. How they use the funding is a question for another day. Now, this significant reduction represents a justification of the government commitment to transform the country from a subsistence-based economy to a prosperous upper middle income economy. With the advent of the parish development model, it is envisaged we shall further bring down the poverty prevalence levels by strengthening the household as the. Despite the reduction in income poverty levels over the years, there remains a challenge given the multidimensional nature and prevalence. The indicators we have just received today will help government to plan better, to close all existent gaps and deprivations ranging from health, that is access to health insurance, and registered stroke home death, because there are still many, and our national statistical system is not capturing many of those. Education, school attendance challenges, years of schooling. We need to see these years increasing significantly, and the completion rates. Living standards, that is household assets. The households must own more assets, and overcrowding. Access to basic services, among others, that have resisted the growing curve in income that is noticeable over the years. I therefore once again wish to applaud UBOS for producing this dimensional poverty index, multidimensional poverty index report for Uganda that digs deeper into the complex nature of poverty and its dimensions, but which again gives an opportunity to explore workable options that are based on number and factual evidence. This figure on unemployment, yes, you are following the international established standards. But you know, when you go to the villages, for those of us who have done campaigns, you'd see so many people who are unemployed. So I want to urge the UN to look at the definition of unemployment so that it is representative enough. In my opinion, I don't think it is representative enough, and it is giving us very complex indicators. So it's a message you could take back to New York. So this is an overriding impetus as to why government has continuously invested in statistics, that is to obtain a body of concrete evidence that can always form a base for evidence-based plans, decisions, and policies across government. I call upon our development partners to continue supplementing this effort so that together we continue to heighten the profile of statistics as a key driver of national transformation. Quality statistics helps us to understand better and keep track of the performance of government initiatives necessary to eliminate poverty and achieve prosperity. And that's why we evaluate the NDP, the plan, after 5 years. Without statistics, you cannot evaluate the performance of the plan. And you cannot do a mid-term review. So statistics is very central in planning and policy making. Government of Uganda for the past 30 years has been focusing on attracting investments necessary to create jobs to absorb the entire national labor force. Government remains committed to this inalienable objective and is focused on building the requisite infrastructure, including industrial parks, roads, electricity generation, and rail networks to boost investment. Although we have not yet reached where we want to be, we are making steady progress in ensuring that all these areas are given the attention they deserve, while also ensuring that we are protecting the gains. Now, this investment should be matched with actions from all players to eliminate poverty. So this is not the work of government alone, for all of us, the private sector, whether you're in a university, wherever you are. Together we have to fight poverty from using a multidimensional approach. We must attack poverty from all corners. This is what this is telling us. You know, focusing on income alone is not going to be enough for us. So this investment should be matched with action from all players to eliminate poverty and all its dimensions to ensure every citizen becomes prosperous and graduates into the money economy. Today's event, therefore, facilitates widespread dissemination of the multidimensional poverty index analytical findings. And we should thank the presenters, the two presenters. Yes, last time they were properly gender balanced. Today, I don't know what happened. Yeah, so this should trigger our focus to support the government and its programs to maximize on the benefits and bridge the gaps where necessary to improve the quality of our population. We have seen the variation, the disparities by regions by districts, and this is very useful information. In fact, in the plan, National Development Plan, we have a program on regional development. And this is going to be very useful information for that chapter on regional development. We know where to put our emphasis. For Karamoja, we have already formulated and recently discussed in the cabinet the new Karamoja development plan, putting into account most of the issues that have been referred to in this report. With those remarks, I want to state that together we can build the Uganda and Africa we want. Thank you so much for your attention, for God and my country.
Honorable Minister, before you sit, you have another duty of launching a report. But prior to that, I would like to introduce and acknowledge, Honorable Minister, you talked of gender aspects. Top management selected a man. Now the experts on multidimensional poverty are headed by Helen Viri. Can stand up for recognition. The director and the process person is Sharon Apio, the head of department, demography and social statistics, and the direct supervisor of Mr. Mohondorwa is Diana Bianjeru, and she's the one who nominated the presenter. So the whole report is engendered. You can see. So thank you. And secondly, I would like to recognize my old friend and a friend of the chair of the Census Matters, Honorable Dr. Ahabwe Pereza. I didn't see you come. So before you sit, you rejoin the minister, because you know once a minister, you remain a minister at launching. He was the minister who championed urbanization. He was creating a lot of town councils, and I was always telling, but why are you bringing this? But according to the report, the MP for Napak is saying you are very right. Maybe government should consider bringing you back. Then the representative of the UN country coordinator, Sharukam, chairman board, you are joining, UNICEF, World Bank, EPRC. I saw NPA here. Helen and the presenters. Those will be enough to help the minister.
So, as ED has said,
So if you need soft copy of my speech, send me WhatsApp or email.
let the team who are there help to do the setup. Thank you. So we shall request that now the Honorable Minister unveils the report to the public. And he has ensured that he also puts a date when the report was launched. So we have our board chairperson. So we have our board chairperson, her signature. Representing the people from Karamoja sub-region, Napak district. So that is Simon from the UN Resident Coordinator's Office. Dr. Palanive from UNDP. Thank you. UNICEF. Dr. Moses from UNICEF. World Bank, EPRC, UNFPA, World Bank, Dr. John, local. Dr. John, you know what's happening in your home area? NPA, Makerere University, we have EPRC, that's Makerere University. NPA, we shall have our ED, Minister of Finance. He's saying that the minister has already signed. So we have the Chief Statistician of Uganda, Dr. Chris Mukiza. The signature starts down, going up. Thank you, ED. The DED, Deputy ED, Dr. Vincent Fred Senono. We have presenters, Mr. Stephen Barahira, Honda. After this, we are going to have a group photo. All those who have signed, you'll take the official group photo with the guest of honor. But just in case the group is big, we shall divide and have two photos. Director Helen Vire. Thank you. So if everyone has signed, I'll request the team to move the dummy slightly to allow for a group photo. Let's have a group photo now. Don't put it very far. Let it be part of the photo, John. You can just tilt it a bit. Just tilt it a bit this side so that it can also be captured. Those are very important signatures that should be captured by the cameras. So we can have some people behind, and then the rest of the delegation will take the front row. Yeah, to balance. Let's balance. Let's balance. Some people behind there. Honorable Kanya, you can remain there, or you want to guard this side by height. Hey, that's okay. So let's have this group photo. Okay. So this marks the dissemination of the Multidimensional Poverty Index report, and all the ingredients have been explained by so many speakers, presenters. Our guest of honor, the ED, has digested it further, and we want to say thank you so much for coming to mark this day with us. We have administrative announcement. We shall request the ED to lead a delegation that he has taken a group photo with for a luncheon. The rest of us will also have lunch. We shall be guided. But I know the media may be interested. It would be good that the Honorable Minister, if you have misplaced a laptop, you can come to the podium. That is only for the 4. So you can see black suits, very smart. Thank you, guest of honor. So let's keep the silence to allow the journalists to do their job. Then we shall continue with the interaction.